I'll never forget the sound of laughter echoing through the walls of my parents' house that night. It wasn't mine. It wasn't for me. My family was in the living room, celebrating, but not my birthday. No, once again, they were throwing a lavish party for my younger brother. Balloons, music, expensive catering, the works. And me? I was standing in the kitchen, staring at a small cake I had bought for myself, waiting for someone, anyone, to walk in and remember. But no one did. My name is Daniel Hart. I'm 35 years old, and I work as an accountant in Dallas, Texas. I've always been the quiet one in the family, the one who handled responsibilities without complaint. My brother, Jason, is the golden child, charming, outgoing, the center of attention. For as long as I can remember, every year it's been the same story. On his birthday, the house would be filled with people, music, and expensive gifts. And on mine? Silence. Excuses. Sometimes even outright forgetfulness. At first, when I was younger, I tried to shrug it off. I told myself maybe they were busy, maybe they just overlooked it. But as the years went by, the excuses grew weaker, and the pattern became impossible to ignore. I would hear the clinking of champagne glasses in the next room while I quietly sliced into my own cake, whispering, "Happy birthday," under my breath, pretending it didn't matter. But it always did. You see, people think the worst betrayals are loud, obvious, screaming fights, slammed doors. But the truth is, the most painful betrayals are silent. It's when the people who are supposed to love you the most simply don't show up. They erase you in small ways, year after year, until one day you look in the mirror and wonder if you ever mattered at all. That night, as I listened to the music thumping from Jason's party, I stared at the single candle on my cake. I could have blown it out and made a wish like I always did. But this year I didn't. Because deep down, I knew wishing for their love was pointless. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. I wasn't powerless. This time, things were going to be different. Growing up, I always believed family was supposed to be your safe place. The people who held you up when the world tried to knock you down. For a long time, I convinced myself that's what I had. My childhood wasn't picture perfect, but it had its moments of warmth, or at least that's how I chose to remember it. When I was little, birthdays actually meant something. My mom would bake a chocolate cake, my dad would pick up balloons from the store, and Jason and I would tear through the wrapping paper on small presents. Those early years gave me the illusion that I was loved equally. But slowly, as we grew older, something changed. Jason was the kind of kid who demanded attention without even trying. He'd score one goal in soccer, and suddenly there would be a family dinner in his honor. I remember once bringing home a straight-A report card, every subject perfect, not a single mark out of place. I placed it on the kitchen table, beaming, waiting for someone to notice. My mom glanced at it, smiled faintly, and then went back to helping Jason get ready for his school play. That night, the whole family went out to celebrate his performance. No one ever mentioned my grades again. At the time, I told myself it didn't matter. I was the responsible one, the quiet achiever. Maybe I didn't need the spotlight. Maybe being dependable was enough. But as the years rolled by, the imbalance grew clearer. Christmas mornings were the hardest. Jason's gifts were always shiny, expensive, carefully chosen. Mine felt like afterthoughts. Socks, a shirt one size too small, a gift card hastily slipped into an envelope. I tried not to let it sting, but when you're a kid, you notice these things. And when you grow up, those memories don't fade, they echo. By the time I hit my 20s, the pattern had solidified. Jason's milestones were monumental events. Graduation parties, promotion dinners, elaborate birthday celebrations with DJs and catered buffets. Mine? Maybe a half-hearted text message, a quick, "Oh right, happy birthday," if I was lucky. Still, I kept holding on to hope. Maybe next year they'll remember. Maybe next year they'll treat me the same. Every year, I'd secretly prepare myself, just in case. I'd dress up, keep my evening free, and imagine them surprising me. But the door never opened, and the phone never rang. You'd think a grown man would learn to stop expecting. But the truth is, no matter how old you get, a part of you still aches for your family's love. Even when you tell yourself you don't need it, the absence leaves a hollow space inside you. There were moments when I almost gave up entirely on the idea of family. But then Jason would flash that easy smile. My parents would tell me how proud they were of both of us. And for a little while, I'd believe them. I'd swallow the bitterness, push the pain down, and keep waiting for a day that never came. Looking back now, I realize those years of silence, those forgotten birthdays, weren't accidents. They were choices. Choices that told me exactly where I stood. And yet, for some reason, I kept clinging to the fantasy that one day they'd change. As the years went by, the excuses started to sound the same, almost rehearsed. Sorry, Dan, we were so busy with Jason's plans this week. Oh, did your birthday already pass? We'll make it up to you soon. Soon never came. I started to notice the rhythm of it. My birthday would come and go in silence, and then, almost like clockwork, a week or two later, Jason's celebration would light up the entire neighborhood. My parents weren't just forgetful. They were selective. They had the energy, the time, and the money for him, just never for me. I remember one year in particular. I had just turned 30. I'd been working overtime for months, saving up to buy a car. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd surprise me with a family dinner. Instead, I came home to find the house filled with people. Not for me, of course, but for Jason's pre-birthday party. They had a custom cake, a live band, even a photographer snapping pictures of every moment. I stood in the doorway, holding a 6-pack of beers I'd picked up for celebration, and realized I wasn't invited. That was the first time the silence inside me turned into suspicion. It wasn't an accident. They didn't forget. They just didn't care enough to remember. From then on, I began to observe everything more closely. The way my mom's eyes lit up when Jason entered a room, compared to the polite smile she gave me. The way my dad introduced him to colleagues at family events as my pride and joy, while I was quietly standing right there, unacknowledged. I started paying attention to the conversations too. Whenever I'd share something about my life, a project I was working on, a promotion at work, the topic would shift within seconds to Jason. His job, his friends, his new apartment. It was like I was a ghost in my own family. Present, but invisible. One night, I caught myself rehearsing how I'd bring it up. How I'd finally ask them why. Why did Jason deserve so much more love? Why was I the one they forgot? But every time I tried to speak, the words stuck in my throat. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. I just wasn't ready to face it. The breaking point came the night I overheard Jason on the phone. He was bragging to one of his friends about his upcoming birthday yacht party. I froze in the hallway listening. He laughed, saying, "Yeah, Mom and Dad always go big for me. Poor Dan doesn't get much, but hey, someone's gotta be the star, right?" I stood there in the dark, gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles turned white. He knew. He knew, and he didn't care. That's when it hit me like a punch to the chest. All these years, I thought maybe it was oversight, maybe bad timing, maybe life just got in the way. But no, they chose him. And in choosing him, they rejected me. I didn't confront anyone that night. I didn't storm into the living room or call Jason out. Instead, I went back to my room, shut the door, and sat in silence. For hours, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I just kept replaying his words in my head. Someone's gotta be the star. And that's when I realized they had written me out of the script a long time ago. I was never going to be their star. I was never even going to be in the spotlight. But if they thought I would spend the rest of my life in the shadows, they were wrong. The moment that finally broke me came on a cold November evening, just a few days after my 32nd birthday. I had been telling myself all week that maybe this time would be different. Maybe they'd remember. Maybe they'd surprise me with something small, dinner, a phone call, even just a card. I came home from work carrying a small box of cupcakes I had picked up on the way. Nothing fancy, just something to share if anyone remembered. As I walked through the door, I was met with the sound of laughter, clinking glasses, and music playing from the living room. For a split second, my heart lifted. Had they actually done it? Had they finally remembered me? I stepped into the hallway, straightened my tie, and prepared myself to walk in. But when I turned the corner, my chest tightened. It wasn't my birthday they were celebrating. It was Jason's promotion at work, a promotion he had gotten just 2 weeks after mine. Only difference was, nobody had even acknowledged mine. The house was decorated with gold streamers, balloons shaped like dollar signs, and a cake so massive it barely fit on the dining table. Friends, extended relatives, neighbors, everyone was there. Everyone except me, of course, because nobody had bothered to tell me there was a party. I stood frozen in the doorway, holding that sad little box of cupcakes, watching my mom gush over Jason like he had just won the Nobel Prize. My dad clapped him on the back proudly, announcing to the whole room how Jason was destined for greatness. People cheered, glasses raised high, and not a single person noticed me standing there. In that moment, something inside me cracked. It wasn't just about birthdays anymore. It wasn't about parties, or cakes, or forgotten dinners. It was about being erased. About being invisible in the one place where I should have mattered the most. I quietly set the box of cupcakes on the counter, and stepped back into the hallway. My hands were trembling, but my face was calm. I could have walked into that room, shouted, demanded answers, begged for recognition. But I didn't. Instead, I walked to my room, closed the door, and sat in the dark. And for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No hope. No longing. Just a cold, hollow silence where love used to be. That night I didn't cry. I didn't even let anger consume me. Because anger fades, and tears dry. What I felt was sharper, deeper, a resolve I had never known before. If they could erase me so easily, then I would erase the need for them. From that day forward, I stopped waiting, stopped hoping, stopped begging for scraps of affection. And while they were busy shining a spotlight on Jason, I started building something in the shadows, quietly, carefully, piece by piece. Because the truth is, the greatest revenge doesn't come from shouting in someone's face. It comes from letting them believe they've won, until the day you prove you never needed them at all. And that was the night I made my choice. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. After that night, something inside me shifted forever. I stopped waiting for love that was never going to come. But instead of walking away immediately, I decided to do something else. I decided to prepare. See, the best revenge isn't loud or impulsive. It's silent. It's patient. It's the kind of revenge where the other person doesn't even see it coming until it's already too late. So while Jason basked in the spotlight, and my parents continued to orbit around him like he was the sun itself, I started working in the shadows. At first, it was small changes, things no one would notice. I stopped sharing details of my life. No more updates about my promotions, my savings, my plans. If they weren't interested, then fine, I'd let them believe I had nothing going on. Meanwhile, I was quietly building. I worked extra hours, took on freelance accounting jobs, and funneled every spare dollar into savings. I invested smartly, carefully, never mentioning a word of it to anyone. Every month, my bank account grew, and with it, so did my independence. I also began expanding my circle outside the family. Real friends, colleagues who respected me, mentors who believed in me. Slowly but surely, I built a life where I was valued, a network that didn't revolve around my brother's shadow. And while they dismissed me as the quiet one, I was gathering something far more powerful than attention, proof. Proof that I was worth more than they had ever given me credit for. One night, as I scrolled through pictures my mom had posted from Jason's latest birthday bash, the yacht party he bragged about, I caught myself smiling. Not because I was jealous, but because I realized something. Their world was small. It revolved around parties, appearances, shallow praise. Mine was becoming bigger, stronger, real. That's when the idea came to me. Why should I keep waiting for them to celebrate me? Why not show them, and everyone else, that I could outshine their golden boy without even trying? From that moment on, my plan became clear. On my next birthday, I wouldn't be the forgotten son standing alone in the kitchen. No, I was going to host my own celebration. Not just any celebration, but one that would make Jason's parties look like backyard barbecues in comparison. The beauty of it was in the silence. I didn't announce it. I didn't drop hints. I didn't ask for their help. I let them go on believing that I was still invisible, still irrelevant. Because the more they underestimated me, the sweeter the shock would be when they finally saw the truth. I booked a venue under a friend's name. I started planning months in advance, catering, music, decor, everything down to the smallest detail. My colleagues, my friends, even clients I'd built strong relationships with, they were all invited. Not as guests, but as people I genuinely valued. Meanwhile, Jason's birthday was once again being hyped up like a national holiday. My parents were knee-deep in preparations, bragging about it to anyone who would listen. And I just nodded, smiled, and pretended not to care. But inside, I was calm, focused, ready. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for their invitation. I was creating my own stage. And when the day came, the spotlight wouldn't be on Jason anymore. It would be on me. And the best part? They wouldn't even see it coming until it was too late. The day finally came. My birthday. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up with that familiar ache in my chest. I didn't wait for a call that would never come or a knock on the door that never arrived. Instead, I woke up with a calm smile and a sense of control I had never felt before. Jason's birthday party was scheduled for the evening. My parents had been buzzing about it for weeks, bragging to relatives and neighbors about the extravagant dinner they were hosting for him at a downtown ballroom. I let them believe I'd show up quietly in the background, like always. But I had my own plans. By late afternoon, my venue was already set. A beautiful rooftop garden overlooking the Dallas skyline, strung with lights that shimmered like stars. The caterers had set up tables lined with gourmet dishes. A live band was tooting their instruments, the sound drifting softly through the evening air. It wasn't just a party, it was an event. And the best part? Every seat was filled. Friends, colleagues, mentors, clients, people who respected me, who cared enough to celebrate me. Not because they had to, not because of obligation, but because they wanted to. I remember standing at the edge of the rooftop as guests started arriving, watching as laughter and music filled the air. It was everything I had dreamed of, but not because it was grand, not because it outshined Jason's. It was because, for the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. The real moment came later that night. Word travels fast in our family. Halfway through my celebration, I noticed a few heads turn near the entrance. And then, there they were, my parents and Jason, still dressed for his party. They looked stunned, frozen in the doorway as they took in the scene. I'll never forget the expression on my mother's face, a mixture of confusion and something else, something like regret. My dad's proud, booming voice was gone. Jason, the so-called star, stood there speechless, his confident smile fading as he realized what he was seeing. Because in that moment, it was clear. His party was grand, yes. But mine had something as never would, authenticity. Real people, real connections, real love. I didn't make a scene. I didn't call them out. I didn't need to. I simply raised my glass, smiled politely in their direction, and went back to celebrating with the people who had chosen to be there for me. The message was loud without me saying a single word. I don't need you anymore. Later, one of my colleagues leaned over and said, Dan, I've been to hundreds of parties in this city, but this one feels different. You should be proud. And for the first time in years, I truly was. As the night went on, I caught glimpses of my family lingering awkwardly near the back, watching as I laughed, danced, and toasted with people who valued me. No one rushed to center them. No one cared about their presence. For once, they weren't the stars of the show. And Jason, oh Jason. He tried to cover it up with a laugh, a casual shrug, but I could see it in his eyes. For the first time, he realized the spotlight didn't belong to him anymore. It never really did. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was simple. I showed them what they had thrown away, and how I had built a life that didn't include them. And the silence that followed was more powerful than any confrontation ever could have been. It's been a few years since that night, but I can still feel the weight that lifted off my shoulders when I chose myself over them. For so long, I had begged for scraps of love from people who were never willing to give it. But that rooftop night taught me something I'll never forget. The family you build can be stronger than the family you're born into. My parents and I don't speak much anymore. The distance was their choice as much as mine. Every so often, I'll get a polite text, maybe a holiday card, but the words feel hollow. Jason still throws his grand parties, still posts his glossy pictures online, still plays the star. But none of it matters to me now. Because I finally understand that his shine was never my shadow. I was simply standing in the wrong place, waiting for the wrong light. My life today is quieter, simpler, but it's mine. I have friends who check in on me, people who celebrate my wins without needing a reason, colleagues who respect me for what I bring to the table. Birthdays aren't about the size of the cake or the number of balloons anymore. They're about being surrounded by people who actually want to be there. And you know what? That's enough. Looking back, I don't regret what happened. Yes, it hurt. It cut deep to realize I was invisible to the people who were supposed to see me the most. But in a way, that pain pushed me to grow. It forced me to stop waiting for validation and start creating my own happiness. If there's one lesson I've carried with me, it's this: you can't force people to love you the way you deserve. But you can choose to stop shrinking yourself for their approval. You can choose to walk away. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right. They forgot my birthday every single year. But I will never forget the year I finally stopped waiting for them and celebrated myself. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest gift of all.